bad things happen to us. I know for a fact that bad things have happened to you in your life, and they will continue to happen. So what's the point of all this? Are we just meant to suffer? No, we are not meant to suffer. It is a lovely universe. It is a loving God. Everything that's happening is actually happening for you in some way. Today, we are bringing on the expert, giving us the reasons that bad things happen. There are 5 reasons that bad things happen in our lives. And I'm so excited for you to learn what those are so that when the inevitable bad things happen in your future, you at least understand why you're going through it and we can get to brighter days. Let's rock. Welcome to the Good Mood Revolution. I'm your host, Matt O'Neill, and I've spent the last 15 years mastering the art of lasting happiness. Look, happiness isn't just a feeling, it is a skill, and it's a skill that you can learn and master. This show is your training ground. Let your Good Mood Revolution begin now. Today, we're talking about how to feel good as we go through extreme adversity. And really, it's understanding why. Sometimes really bad things happen, like super bad things, really crummy things. Sometimes life just isn't fun to go through. And yet, we're going through these crummy times because they're part of the journey. And in fact, they're here to help us in some way. I have an expert on this. She's written the book, 5 Reasons Bad Things Happen. She's actually the author of over a dozen books and over 24 movie scripts. She helps people understand why bad things happen. And I am so excited to bring our guest on, Brownell Landrum. Brownell, welcome to Good Mood Revolution.
I'm so excited to be here. And I'm just, I'm loving connecting with you and connecting with your listeners and your followers, and happy to delve into this really big topic.
So I understand a while ago, some really crummy things happened. And it was a super tough thing. And it was one after another. And then you've shared with me that you kind of been going through some tough times now. I'd love for you just to tell the stories about, what happened and how tough it was before we get into why these things happen and kind of your epiphany about why they happen.
Yeah. Of course, throughout, everybody has bad things happen, right? Some people worse than others. So sometimes when say, well, what happened to you? I kind of list them off like they're kind of nothing, because I might say something and other people might say, well, that's not that bad. I've had worse. And so I never want to overinflate how bad. However, if you look at a child, like a teenage crush that breaks your heart, that pain is just as strong as, anything, any other time. So, but anyway, what
I so agree.
Yeah.
And, and it's like, one time I said that I was going through a really, really hard time, and I was at lunch with a friend, and I said, oh, but this isn't really that big of a deal. Other people have it so much worse. And he stopped me and he said, don't diminish the pain that you're going through. This is a very hard experience that you're going through, and it's okay to let yourself know that this is tough. And that was an important thing that he said. Because a lot of times I will say, well, it's not as bad as so-and-so, or it's not, it could be worse. But at the same time, I'm like inside, I'm totally breaking. Like it's like the hardest thing I've ever been through, and I don't know how to get through it. Yeah. So I'm glad that you said that even a teenager who has their first love betray them or leave them, or their heart is broken, like that pain is as raw and as real as it gets.
Right. And maybe worse than anything you'll ever have. And, maybe a lot of times when you're going through the rest of your life, you're reliving that. So, yeah. And, there's a lot of things that I'm sure we're going to get into, especially as far as sort of some of the more recent stuff. Right. And I think one of the important things is, even though I'm the expert on bad, reasons why bad things happen, bad things still happen, right? And no matter how, more evolved or lessons or learning you get, there are still other layers of learning. And for me, a lot of my bad times become really existential crises, and they become spiritual crises. So it's not just functional stuff that's going on, but it's like the why and the like feeling like everything's falling in. But yeah, I had gone through, and this was many years ago. I had put all my effort, all my money, all my everything into a business that, I felt really spiritually guided to do. I mean, I really felt like I was in alignment with making a difference and it was going to be really positive, and it failed and I lost everything.
So you had felt guided to do this business. You felt like it was helping the world, that this was what you were supposed to be doing, that a higher power was saying this is for you, this is for the world, and you put all your eggs in that basket and it failed. And then
And
not
it
only
failed.
did it just fail, but you lost your home and you had to file bankruptcy. You must have just been in so much despair. You must have been so crushed. I could just imagine myself on the floor just crying in this kind of a state. I don't know how you were dealing.
Yeah, I mean, and it was, again, existential. Like, what now? Where can I get faith? Like, there's just got to be. I just didn't understand why it was going on. I mean, there was, it was bad. I mean, I've had some bad times since, and I've had some bad times before, but this time propelled me into, okay, there's got to be a reason why. I've just got to, and I had read the book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. I don't know if you know that book.
From the 80s.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm just going to kind of like give a little fast forward, but I wrote my book that we're going to talk about, and I met Rabbi Kushner, who wrote that book, and his reaction was, well, things are random. I don't believe that anything happens for a reason. And it led me to doing some more research that found out that people who believe things happen for a reason are happier than those who don't. And that a lot of people have a problem with that. Like, I've seen posts on social media where, like, oh, those people who say everything happens for a reason are just evil people, and how dare they? But there really is some good solid research that says if you look for a reason and you can find meaning in it, then you actually kind of have some power in it as well.
My grandmother, Grandma Seeley, used to say, everything happens for a reason. And so my mom used to say, Matt, everything happens for a reason. And there was at times when I was going through, I remember I had a breakup in college with a girl I dated for 3 years. And she ended up marrying just after college somebody. And to me, that's that high school heart that's broken. It was a crisis for me. And at that point in my life, I had no faith. I had no faith in anything. I felt like everything was random, that science could explain it all. And I'm like, I know that people who have faith are happier, and people who believe this garbage, everything happens for a reason, they're happier, but they're just stupid too.
It depends on, kind of how you look at it. But he almost says, you know what? It doesn't even matter if they're right or not. It still makes them happier.
Right. Well, so here's the thing is that I knew that they were happier. And then I found proof in faith. And so once I started to experience that everything in my life was being guided, and once you start to connect these dots, you're like, oh, holy cow, like everything's guided, everything's happening for me. And that exercise helped me strengthen my faith more than anything. And so for me, even though I was the one that drove this girl away, my heart was still broken that she chose someone else. And and in the moment, it felt like this crisis. And then now years later with the wife, Katie, that I'm supposed to be with, and our 4 children, I just think, wow, I was supposed to go through that crisis.
Well, and what did you learn from it? Right. I mean, and
to be faithful.
Well, I was going to say, so you learned a little bit of a karma lesson, because we're going to talk about the 5 reasons why bad things happen. And spoiler alert, karma is one of them. Karma is a reason, and lesson is a reason. If you learn the lesson, then you can get to the better ending, right? And get to the transcendence. Because the thing all 5 reasons have in common is to get you to change. It's trying to get you down another road, that you're going down a particular road that isn't serving you the best way. And so, and sometimes we have to be kicked, and pushed and prodded and nudged to go where we're supposed to go. And sometimes it's a bad thing that does it.
The wait is finally over. The Good Mood Revolution book is officially available for pre-order on Amazon today. You can go to Amazon and look for Good Mood Revolution book. And in this book, you're going to find the 8 bad moods that get in the way of your happiness. You're going to learn strategies on how to overcome each of these 8 negative thoughts. They're all lies anyway. And then what the thought patterns are that make us happy every single day. You're also going to learn strategies that can make you really feel fulfilled in your life and make other people around you feel fulfilled as well. So go on Amazon, look for Good Mood Revolution book, and order yours today. It doesn't feel great to go through it, but again, I wouldn't take any of them back. And I love what we're saying. We're already talking about 2 of the 5 reasons. So let's get into it. So you were going through your crisis, all of these bad, financial crisis, losing your home, losing your dog, losing a relationship. You're not like, I'm going to be homeless. I don't know. And then how did these 5 reasons come to you?
I was just I kept thinking there's got to be a reason why. There's got to be a reason. And so I was meditating one day and, just if you read the book, you'll know it's not just, I wrote 5 reasons and now let me write it. I did a lot of research after those 5 reasons came to me. And I did a lot of studying hundreds of books that I read and hundreds more articles to kind of get the backup for it. And to see, okay, yes, this is all fitting together. Let me put some real examples to it. But I will say that one thing that is clear in the book is that and we've kind of touched on this, is that I have what I call basic assumptions. If these basic assumptions make sense to you, then the book will totally answer everything. Like there will be no questions unanswered. But if you don't, it's really hard for me to kind of talk you into some of these beliefs. One of them is a belief in some kind of higher power. Now, You can use a religious term for that. You can just call it energy or love energy. And so when you realize that the body has its own mentality, it's picking up stuff that our conscious mind isn't. And
right. And they say, oh, I've got a gut feel about that. Or my heart guided me. Yes. So many decisions are made on a gut level or a heart level. The chakras are very real. Yes. The chakra energy centers. So our whole body is actually intelligent. Yes. Yes. And so just for the person that's listening to understand that how the body is the subconscious. I think I love this. Okay. So we've got 2 of our beliefs. One, we must believe in a higher power in order to accept these 5 reasons. And we kind of already talked about this. If it went in the times that I did not believe in a higher power, I was the least happy of my life and the most lost and the most afraid and the most angry. And once I had a firm belief in a higher power, I became much happier. I talk about this, my book, Good Mood Revolution. It's impossible to reach the highest levels of happiness without a belief in something bigger than yourself. Yes. And sometimes you can be pretty mad at them. Yeah, sure. So just to make that clear, it doesn't mean you're going to be like, oh, whatever you say, and you're always good to me. It's like, sometimes you're like, give me some clarity, give me some direction. Like with me in the business failing, I followed divine guidance and then okay, so I felt really betrayed. Just so you know that, and I know you probably felt that too, just because you might believe it doesn't mean you're like, oh, I'm always wrong and you're always right. Like sometimes you want to tussle with them. So I've only had that experience once, and that's when I turned my back. I finally just got so mad. I'm like, I don't understand why you didn't give me the dad that would be there for me. Yeah. If you loved me like you love everyone else, you would have given me a dad that didn't harm me. Right. And that was when I said, this doesn't make sense. None of this higher power stuff makes sense. It's probably all just science. If there was a higher power, why do all these bad things happen? Right. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just saying, this is where my mind was. If God is all loving, why is he letting people murder each other? Why is war part? I couldn't make sense of it. And it was all because I had this wound that I felt like I had been wounded and that I had been a victim and that it wasn't fair and it didn't make sense. And I'm like, so then I'm just like, oh, I guess everything's random.
Yeah. I mean, that's when it gets really, really tough because, well, I know we're going to, you and I talked about before about the Michael Newton and the journey of souls and how we're planning our lives and all of that kind of stuff. And then we can also kind of look at these things that are happening and go, well, if you look at some of the, in that fact, that's one of the other basic assumptions basically is that we plan our lives, right? And that before we're here, we do some planning of what we're going to have happen.
Oh, I fully, so now I can look back and say, oh, I believe I chose my parents.
Yes.
I believe I chose that father, knowing exactly who he was, exactly what he was going to do, and exactly how I was going to be treated. And once I came to that belief, I was like, oh, God always loved me. I'm the one that put myself in that fire. And I put myself in that fire because I knew I was going to learn lessons and discover things that I couldn't have discovered any other way.
That's right. And you got his genetics, you got the family, you got all of those things that you select. There's a really great episode of the Invisibility podcast where a little boy talks about, he's like 4 years old and he's talking about his parents, and his this life parents are kind of freaking out, but he remembers his past life parents. And by the way, you don't have to believe in past lives to the 5 reasons. That's not one of the assumptions. You can not or believe in past life, but you have to kind of believe in the existence of a soul that chooses a body and becomes us.
Right. That's the fourth assumption is you have to believe, and we kind of talked about the 3 selves, but that we are an eternal soul that existed before this life and that will continue to exist after this life. That is a basic assumption in order to have the happiest outlook on bad things. I had a podcast guest who said when her daughter was 3 or 4, same age.
Yeah.
She said, Mommy, I remember choosing you. And she was like, okay. And she said, no, I was in a classroom and you and Daddy were up on the screen and they said, who'd like these parents? And no one raised their hand. And I raised my hand and I chose you.
Well, in fact, I wrote 2 children's books. One is kind of about the meaning of life, which I'm going to give you a couple of verses that answer one of the basic assumptions. And then also one is on reincarnation. And there's a verse in there. It says, we decide on our lessons, the paths we will take, awards we might go for, and mistakes we might make. For life isn't easy and not always fun, but easy is boring like games always won. So we set up our challenges and mountains so high to test our endurance and reach for the sky. It doesn't much matter if we get to the top. What matters much more is what we do when we stop. So that kind of encapsulates the fact that we do set up these things. We know it's not going to be so easy. Picking that father wasn't going to be so easy. We tend to have amnesia, I think, I call it upstairs, when we're upstairs and we're going, oh, wow, yeah, that'll be a good challenge. And we get there like, oh, God.
Why did I pick this? All right. So now so we've got the basic assumptions. Now let's go into what are the 5 reasons bad things happen.
So the first one is subconscious sabotage. Okay. And so what that means, as I said, your body is your subconscious. So that's when your body and your mind and wherever you're handling with your connection to the spirit part of you, that's where there's a disconnect. Perfect example of the body going, no, we're not working. I'll do what I have to do, but we're not working. And so when you start getting to know your body, and I have some exercises in there in the book about how to do that. And it's really, really profound. But when you start realizing, you start communicating with your body as if it's a separate person. And you're like, what do you want to do today? Where are you? Where do you want to go? What do you want to eat? And you can play little games with them and say, okay, if we can work really hard and finish this project by noon, then I'll take you on a walk this afternoon or whatever.
Yes.
But the body can cause a lot of subconscious sabotage. And the body also has a connection to spirit.
Yeah.
But literally, all he needed to do is make that change in his life. He was completely cured. He didn't need the 3rd surgery. I mean, it was like their body can cooperate really quickly once you get on track and get.
Yeah. So Louise Hay wrote the book.
Yes.
I can't remember the name of the book, but
You can heal your life.
Yeah, you can heal your life, and where she catalogs all the different organs, all the different body parts, and what they associate. So if we're having pain in our knees, for example, that's a reason that we need to pivot in our life. If we're having pain in our right arm, it's because we're trying to carry too much. If we're having pain in our neck, you think about where you're like, oh, that person's a pain in the neck.
Right.
We're probably upset with somebody, or we're not looking at things. And so, yeah, so one of the things you're saying is one of the reasons that we have bad things is subconscious sabotage.
Your body is, and you're, like I said, your body has a connection to the collective unconscious as well as your superconscious. So, and so it can be like, okay, if the spirit self says you need to have this illness or this problem because that's part of their spiritual lesson, then the body will cooperate. But the body also will cooperate with the mind as long as there's the really good open communication and that it's a partnership. So
yeah, so my body was getting super angry at me because I wasn't doing anything fun.
Yes.
And like you were saying, I'm like, work. We're going to work out. You're going to lift all these weights. We're going to crush it in business. We're going to be the best dad. We're going to be the best husband. And I'm basically just being a Boy Scout and not doing anything fun. And my body just got tremendous back pain. And it was like, I want fun.
Exactly.
Then once I heard those lessons, I was like, oh, okay. So sometimes we got to do stuff just because it's fun, and we can't just work all the time. And guess what? Back pain went away.
Right. And getting to know your body and having a relationship with him or her or them or whatever terminology you want to use is when you're like, what do you want to do? Where are you? What's going on here? And so that's a really important part. So that's the first one.
Okay. Number two.
The second one is karma. So we talked about that, right? So and you can kind of understand where that is. It doesn't have to mean past life. In fact, I don't even mention that in the book, but that can add to the dimension of it if you believe in that.
Yeah, so we talked about karma with me, breaking that girlfriend's heart, and then her breaking my heart.
Right.
And that's just as simple as it is. It's not actually punishment. It's a lesson.
No, it leads to the third one, which is it's a lesson, right?
Yeah.
Karma is always about a lesson, always. But there can be a lesson that's not necessarily a karmic lesson. I know that I went through a period a number of years ago of victimhood. Like I tried on that jacket of victimhood, and I or the hood of victimhood or whatever for about a year. And wow, that's some powerful energy. And I realized when I finally broke free from that, it was just on the checklist of things I was supposed to learn. Like it wasn't karmic. Yeah. It was just, I needed to learn that so I can help others who are tied up in that energy.
Are you looking to take your happiness to another level? If you're looking to be more successful, we need to be happier because success and happiness go hand in hand. But sometimes we get stuck in thought patterns we don't even know are holding us back. And we need a coach or a mentor to see things we can't see with our own eyes. I've had coaches and mentors help me access levels of happiness I couldn't have achieved without them. I'm now offering that same service to a small, select number of people. If you think one-on-one coaching could elevate your happiness, go to mattoneil.com and click the coaching tab to learn more. I look forward to talking with you. Yeah, I one of the chapters in my book, I talk about how Katie and I had a very traumatic experience having one of our children.
No.
And I actually thought that he died in delivery. And I was just talking with my buddy, Matt Micheletti, yesterday about it. And I'm like, because he also had a very traumatic experience with his child. And on the operating table, I started to think about how we would go on from here, how we were going to experience having a child that didn't make it and having that funeral. Like my mind was going through all of it. And in that moment, I realized, oh, I can plan and try, and like we can have a birth plan and we can have the right doctors. And ultimately I realized I'm not in control of any of it. And then what showed up was profound gratitude.
Yeah.
Like gratitude I couldn't have accessed any other way, that I have children that are alive and I get to be here with them, that I have a wife who lived through delivery that she didn't have to live through that delivery. I could have been a father of 4, widowed, figuring it out, but the higher power, for me it's God, allowed it to be that we got to continue to live. And that was like, then I'm just now every day I just say thank you that I'm here. But that wasn't karmic. That was more just a lesson.
That's a lesson, right? And I think you learned what you are in control of. Like, in fact, there's a part of the book that gets into the things you're within your control, things outside of your control, things that you can influence but not control. But you learned at least, okay, how can I handle this? What can happen? If it happens, how will I handle this? What can I do with this? Can I handle it? And sometimes that's, even more powerful. So you ready for number 4?
Number 4.
It's very simple. It's a test, and it's generally a test to see if you learned your lesson, right? That sometimes you think, okay, I learned this, I think I did this. And then you get tested to see, okay, did I really learn that lesson? Because it's like school, and you kind of have to take a test to see, did you really learn, did you listen in class? You have to kind of take the test.
One of the chapters in my book, I was writing about how you can get hit in the face. And I was saying, if you got hit in the face, that, then I can't even remember what the lesson was. It didn't make the final cut, but I was like very invested in like talking about how sometimes life will hit you in the face, and that even when that happens, you could still choose to be happy, right? That week, I get hit so hard in the face playing basketball that my 2 front lower teeth go through the bottom of my lip, and blood is streaming down my face. And like, I have to leave immediately, get to the emergency room. They have to put all these stitches inside my lip, all these stitches on the outside of my lip. And I'm literally like, okay, so here I am at the emergency room. I'm literally writing right now about how sometimes life can hit you in the face and you could choose to be happy anyway. Will I choose to be happy during this test? And I firmly believe that was a test. I'm like, okay, whatever force is out there is saying, if you believe you can be happy if you get hit in the face, let's see if you can live it. And so I'm like, they're stitching my lip, and I'm just thinking, I'm so grateful that we have these doctors that I could just drive to that can stitch a lip. I'm grateful that they're gonna do such a good job that my lip's gonna look fine. I went to a Make-A-Wish ball, like a wish night, like the big event, and I'm on the board of directors for Make-A-Wish, and my lip was so big that day. I was like, and I got all these pictures with this busted lip, and I had a great time. I had a great time at the Make-A-Wish ball, and I did. I was like, okay, this is my test.
That is a beautiful test. That is really, I'm like, if I was rewriting the book, I would add that in as a really great example of a test. And then the 5th one is that there's a blessing disguise, or a gift or silver lining or something like that in it. And the thing is that they can all weave together, right? You can have something. In fact, I had a list of 99 bad things and how each of the 5 reasons could explain them. And if you pass the lesson, or get to know your body, and or pass the test, or learn the lesson, then you may be able to get to that silver lining quicker. And there are people that, and I think you're kind of alluding to this too, there are an unbelievable number of stories of people who say cancer was the best thing that ever happened to them.
Right.
And you and I go, no, I don't want to learn that one. No, thanks. I don't want to learn that. But
I don't want to learn it. I don't. No. And yet I've interviewed so many people that say that I needed this.
Right. And so that's again. And so the big reason why, the thing they all have in common, is to get you to change something. Right. There is, like I said, with the guy that I mentioned with the throat cancer or whatever, it's like to put you on a different path, to get you on a different trajectory. And so to learn to love change and to be embracing. And so if you get to any bad thing and you go, okay, what do I need to change? What needs to change? What's this message that needs to change? that can really take you there.
Well, I think that there's so much wisdom in what you just said. What is life if it's not constant change?
And we're so afraid of it, right? So often we're afraid of it, and we look at it and go, I don't want this to change or that to change. And, I know we're kind of getting a little bit into where I'm going through now. I'm living a nomadic life where I don't know where I'm going to be living in a few months. I know I'm going to be in where I am I'm in Tunisia, by the way. I don't know if you even know that. I know I'm going to be, and I don't know where I'm going to be after that. And this all started from at the earlier part of this year. I start writing a story, and I'm writing it, and I think I'm going to write this story from the point of view of the upstairs. Mm. And so it has been a year of, what do y'all want me to do? Okay. Where do you want me to go? Okay. And it hasn't always been easy. And there have been times when I get crickets when I'm asking where they want me to go. And there are times when I feel a lot of pain because something, I had a relationship. I fell in love this year. I fell out of love this year. I got betrayed. I got all these lessons. Reverse optimism says that relationship was such a gift, whether it worked out or not, whether it ever will or not, it was such a gift. It also led me to write the story, which really introduced me to they're crazy folks up there. I call two of them, I call traffic angels. And it's like that. I think that there are really energies that say, okay, if this person's here and this person's here, somebody has to do the logistics to get to them together. And for me, it was how does an American woman meet a British man in Tunisia? Like, that was a logistical, and I could go through
Katie and I love that idea of this traffic angel. Katie and I were destined. And when I got off the plane in Charleston, I grew up in Michigan, lived in Colorado, and then went to the mountains. Again, at that point in my life, I was not spiritual, but I went to the mountains. I knew enough to go to the mountains, and I thought about, where should I go? And Charleston came into mind. I get off the plane in Charleston, and as soon as my foot steps on the ground, it touches the ground, I get this wave of knowing through me. I would meet my wife and we'd have our children. I'd live forever in this town. And 3 years later, I meet Katie on a eHarmony date. And when I'm sitting there at the bar talking with her, and the same knowing came over me that this was the woman I was to be with. And it was crazy. It wasn't like inside my head, like, oh, she's cute and all that. Of course, that was going on too. But this was an outward sign. And then for her, she ends up getting a sign the next date. And she was born in England, Ipswich, England. And then, so I'm born in Michigan. She's born in Ipswich, England. We end up meeting in Charleston, South Carolina. So another really crazy thing, I'm on that date, and she tells me, she said, oh, so I was born in England, and then my dad was in the Air Force. We ended up at Shaw Air Force Base in Sumter, South Carolina. And I said, Sumter. She said, yes. I said, when I was in 7th grade, my teacher said, I want you to make up a story about anywhere on the map and pick a town and then make a story. And I picked Sumter, South Carolina off the map and wrote a story about a guy named Tex Ritter, who was from Sumter, South Carolina. It's so interesting. She was there at that time. She was in Sumter at the time as I was writing the story about where she was. Just a random, again, I'm saying random.
But it wasn't. The traffic angels had to work pretty hard to do it. But if you had already set it up, like you had decided your lessons and you had set up that she was going to be the one, then, and I think that, and that's one of the basic assumptions in the book too, is like that I think we draw kind of a roadmap, and then before we get here. So there's free will before we're born. And then there's free will when we get here, because once we get here, do we take a right? Do we take a left? Do we sit at an intersection the whole life? Do we zoom right through? We can take the high road or the low road. You may have taken, there could have been a life or a parallel world where you took the low road and you didn't get to the highest, life that you're in now. And maybe you didn't find that kind of guidance that you now enjoy and love. So it's very interesting that we can also make those choices. But on some level, that map you probably had her like, I could go left here, but then I'm going to keep going and ultimately end up, where she is. Like 50 roads led to her versus maybe one or two to, somebody else or something else.
It's so great. I'm so glad that it ended like that we ended up being together. Brownell, I'm just so happy that we're friends now. I'm so happy to know you. How could people learn more? How could they get into your work and work with you or learn more about your work?
Well, thanks. Yeah. I mean, there's so much, one of the things, of course, there's a lot of things we didn't get into. The story I mentioned is free. It's called The End, A Love Story to the Universe. So hopefully we can give a link to everybody to download that for free. And I've written part 2. So, and that is even more powerful. So happy to share that with people for no cost. I also have a new novel series called We Meet Again. It's kind of this epic reincarnation mystery about like the Da Vinci Code meets Outlander with a reincarnation theme, and a real big mystery and purpose thing. I'm the only Brownell Landrum in the world, so you can go to brownelllandrum.com and find me there. And we also have a group on Facebook called the Life is a Trip group. So hopefully people can join that, and it's really great for sharing stories. And please look me up because I love to talk to fans of my books and into all these deep topics. And I'm working on something about forgiveness that I want to share with the world and lots of different things. So.
Well, you are wonderful. And I'm sure people listening today will look you up. Your books sound so fascinating. I love this idea of a mystery between lives. Like it sounds so fun. It sounds like
it is, and I'm getting such great reviews, which is the biggest, thrill in the world. And it's really deep. There's some really good philosophy and some really, fun romance and mystery and everything else. So.
Well, because you're very deep. I'm sure there's profound wisdom, and sometimes we learn the biggest lessons by reading fiction.
Well, in fact, that's my tagline: is lose yourself in the fiction, find yourself in the truth.
I love that.
Then sometimes fiction, you can suspend the disbelief to actually let new ideas come in. So
absolutely. I like some movies have changed my life, and they're movies that move you so profoundly that you like see life in a new way, or some books can do the same thing. So, well, Brownell, I'm just a big fan of yours. I appreciate you coming on and talking with us about how to make sense of these bad things that happen in our lives. You're just a blessing to the world.
I loved it. We could go on and on. So I appreciate it. I very much, and nice to meet all your fans, and just glad to know you.
All right, y'all. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode with Matt O'Neill.